Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around we had Vengeance on Varos. What happened there?
It was essentially Doctor Who meets George Orwell.
Yeah.
Planet where the ruling party basically tried to control everything, and yet they televised it very much like the old Roman Empire had read in circuses. And the Doctor and Perry came in and saved a young man from execution, and then there was a whole bunch of running around in what looked to be underground tunnels in golf carts. And ultimately, of course, the leader, who it turns out seems to be a really bad guy at the very beginning, has doubts about the system, and anyway, convinces somebody to let him go when he's being overthrown by the tiny little tequila worm or whatever he was. Anyway, it all ends up well. So, I mean, it was an interesting episode. I think the first time we watched it in our preview, we were really not worried, but fascinated by the little worm-like creature. Because, and again, I don't know if they had hired an actual small person to do that, but if they did not, the special effects were great because he was sitting on this kind of rolling cart and you could see through the cart. So it was kind of interesting to figure out how they had disguised that if he was not, in fact, someone that small.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time around, we just didn't really get it. We didn't get what was going on at all. And I don't know. It's interesting because it's not like, oh, well, now we have so much more context of these characters. It's not really that much more other than we know this Doctor a bit more, we know Perry a little bit more. Other than that, it's like for some reason this time around, it's like, no, I understand pretty much everything they're going for. And I don't know if that's just because our comprehension of Doctor Who episodes has gotten better or worse, depending, gotten better, or we've just been beaten down by all of these episodes, or if the fact that as time goes on, that episode just keeps getting more and more relevant.
Yeah, I was going to say the things that the United States has been through for the last couple of years makes this a little bit more relevant now. We used to laugh at 1984, and now we look at it and go, wow, he really was prophetic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a whole... ironically, that was like an Apple commercial where they basically did 1984, but you'll be saved by the power of Apple. Have you seen Apple? They are terrifying. So, and just on that, just because when else am I ever going to say this? I want to let it be known that I blame Apple for the reason that this Google Pixel 7 does not have a headphone jack. I hate that, and I hate companies. Why can't I just plug in my headphones? So... You haven't realized that yet because you still have your Galaxy S9. That still has a headphone jack.
Yeah.
But if you get a new Samsung, iPhone, Pixel, whatever, none of them have a headphone jack anymore.
What I always tell people, and they're usually astounded by this, I use my phone as a phone.
That's true.
Rarely for anything else. I mean, there are no food apps no apps on it other than food apps, because I order from various restaurants and then go pick it up. Something we started during the pandemic. But I mean, seriously, I don't look at social media on it. I just use it as a phone.
To be fair, like, since whenever Twitter became X, I just instinctively deleted it off my phone. And that's actually been amazing, not being on Twitter all the time. But it did kind of take away, like, half of the purpose of my phone. So, like, I can't tell you how many times I open Gmail and there's nothing there. But I open it just in case. Because I also don't turn on notifications for, like, anything except a text message. And nobody texts me anyway, so yeah, like, I'll go to Gmail. I do still have Instagram on my phone, and I do still have YouTube, so I'll just find some weird 7-second video on YouTube that's just... but still. But that's pretty much all I use my phone for, and, like, Googling things and the weather. That's about it. I don't even play
Speaking
games.
of which, we're in another week of sub-freezing temperatures.
Yep,
It's like 12 degrees this morning. That's Fahrenheit.
It is currently 15 degrees.
Ooh, it's a heat wave.
But I believe today's high is 29, which, again, for the folks that don't know Fahrenheit, that's below 0 Celsius. So it's a bit nippy. So, anywho. Today we have the Mark of the Rani.
And I'm very interested. Now, I've heard, from various things that people have talked about, with the Master and all these recurring villains, that the Rani is now, this is like the newest recurring villain.
Yeah.
That the Rani will be coming back many, many times.
I mean, as many as the Rani can before the show gets axed, but yeah, I do know that the Rani does become a recurring villain, and from what I've heard, the Rani isn't necessarily a villain, like the Master's a villain, Yeah. Like, the Master will always come in with some evil plan, and generally it doesn't make any sense, but he sells it, The Rani, from what I hear, is not quite like that. So, I don't know. The only thing we've ever seen the Rani in was Dimensions in Time, and that doesn't count. Most Doctor Who fans drink to forget about that little short. Although I enjoyed it because it was hilarious, because it was stupid, just cycling through all the doctors while a soap opera plays at the same time. So, but otherwise, yeah, I have no idea really what we're getting into with the Rani, but I'm excited because this is like one of the few. This is like number 2 or 3 in terms of classic villains people want to bring back in modern Doctor Who. So yeah, you got anything else?
Nope.
Then we might as well just jump right into the Mark of the Rani. Here we go.
Pip and Jane Baker.
It's 2 more Bakers to add to the show.
Coal mining town? Some kind of mining. Yeah. You come from coal miners. The Lemens were coal miners in Tavistock in southwest England. And then my grandfather's family migrated to Chester, Pennsylvania, which is also a coal mining area here in the United States. I'm not going to say this is modern times, but probably late 1800s, early 1900s.
It's a good-looking place. It hardly looks like Doctor Who.
Got some crane work going on here.
Well, yeah.
Some substitute for cute gardens.
Try and look on the bright side. After all, isn't coal just fossilized plant life?
What have you got there?
Tracking device. Registers time distortion. Hoist up your skirts, Perry. Off we go.
Oh, he has a different cat on his coat.
Jeez.
Oh. Now the potatoes.
Luddites? Oh.
They attacked the machinery.
That's right, miss. Who's after smashing up machinery?
Oh, I'm lost. Why would anyone want to smash machinery?
Scared of robbing of their jobs.
Maybe.
You suspect another motive?
Let's say I'm keeping an open mind. Can you stand?
Well, you get a new job operating machinery.
Stevenson?
Then parts he is.
George Stevenson?
I see. Do you know him?
Know of him. Perry, how would you like to meet a genius?
Thought I already had.
Yes, of course, but I haven't changed the course of history. Indeed, I'm expressly forbidden so to do. But George Stevenson.
I don't know who George Stevenson is.
Maybe, I can't remember if he's one of the guys that helped improve the steam engine or not.
Hurry, isn't he, miss? Does that mean something's wrong?
It does, I'm afraid, but don't ask me what. Oh, thanks.
Nobody says anything about the fact that she doesn't have an accent.
He will not last, Grandma.
Oh, He just walked into the episode. Jeez.
Primitive and insult. But first things first. I've a death to arrange.
Cleverly disguised as Hamlet.
Oh, yeah.
Then the name will be on the list.
Here, let me see that. Get that dog under control. Now, where we go? Thomas Telford, Michael Faraday, Humphrey Davy. Good heavens, Perry. Do you recognise these names?
Well, I'm not totally ignorant.
Faraday, if I recall correctly, was either working with oxygen or electricity. It's been years since I taught world history.
You can smell the evil. No, the dog.
Did he kill them or just shrink them?
Yes.
Wears yellow trousers and a vulgarly coloured coat. But go carefully, he's treacherous.
Oh, jeez.
Where's Terry? Smack him.
Meh.
And now, perhaps, you'll tell me who you are. And I don't want any of that flummery about VIPs. I am Lord Ravensworth, the owner. I issued personally the invitations to the meeting, and your face is not one that I recall. My office, now. VIPs, indeed.
Don't know that they would have ever used the VIP acronym in this particular time.
Meh.
Really? Do I look like a man who would wreck machines?
Well, you've certainly never done a day's labour in your life. But it is possible, you're right.
No welcome.
You're not.
Fascinating. But then anything connected with you would undoubtedly be fascinating, my dear Rani.
I thought that last mad scheme of yours had finished you for good.
Yes, of course, I'm
he
indestructible.
burned
The
to
whole
death.
universe knows that.
Is that so? You and the doctor are a well-matched pair of pests. You bring nothing but trouble. Now I need a new assistant.
Ew. Ew. Ugh. Well, at least it was in the mouth.
What the blazes are you doing, man?
All right, thank you.
Did you hear me? What's all that about?
Later, you said that the son of one of my attackers worked for you?
Yes, Luke Ward, George Stevenson's assistant. Very capable young man, my protege, as a matter of fact.
Find him for me, will you? There's a good chap.
Drat it, man's a positive law unto himself.
Well, now what's going on?
I am about to follow what you would term as a hunch.
Must you? Okay, where do I fit in?
You stay here where you'll be safe.
Safe? I haven't been safe from the moment I first found myself in the TARDIS.
How do I look?
Like a man who could do with a bath.
Do up your hair a little bit, at least.
Now!
No, he's gonna get crap all over his... Well, I guess it won't show up on his suit.
What's he up to now? Maybe something devious and overcomplicated. You get dizzy if you try to walk in a straight line.
It's amazing he actually looks marginally better with that. I was gonna say, all that crap on his face really disguised him.
The Rani.
You were expecting to see the master?
To see? Not exactly. He was burnt to a crisp the last time I saw him.
Your smugness is misplaced. He's here. He's very much alive, and he wants vengeance. Curse the pair of you.
Well, since we're insulting each other, I can't say I care much for your taste in clothes. Doesn't do a thing for you.
Your regeneration's not too attractive either. But at least I can change my appearance. You're stuck with what you've got.
This isn't your first visit?
I've been coming to this wretched planet for centuries.
Without being discovered. Well, I'm impressed. You're obviously a brilliant tactician as well as a brilliant chemist.
Oh, it isn't difficult. These humans you so admire are a feckless lot, always in disarray. The Trojan Wars, the Dark Ages, the American War of Independence.
And now the Luddite riots.
Perfect cover.
These are human beings, Rani. Living creatures that have done you no harm.
The carnivores. What harm have the animals in the fields done them? The rabbits they snare, the sheep they nourish to slaughter. Do they worry about the lesser species when they sink their teeth into a lamb chop? Ah!
She's a militant vegan.
Darling.
I mean, I must do something.
You can. Get that poor fellow out of danger.
Well, how?
Use some of that famous American initiative.
Yeah.
Push him outside.
But what if they try?
Their orders relate only to me. Now move, Perry.
No, she didn't think that through. Run them over with it.
Her brain's as good as anyone else's.
No comment, Doctor.
Don't think I could stand it.
What are you talking about?
A hyperactive Perry. Too ghastly to contemplate. I can't really see from this far away.
You can hear.
I gather they're going to throw it down the pit.
All the way down. To the bottom.
I think the TARDIS has been through worse than throwing down a hole. Oh!
Stay back! Right, push, lads, away we go! Hey!
Alrighty.
All right, so does this not qualify as a historical?
Technically, yeah. It's not a pure historical, but yes, it would count as a
Quasi,
hybrid, I suppose.
Because, I mean, I was under the impression that we weren't going to see any more historicals. I mean, we haven't met George Stevenson yet.
Oh, yeah.
He may still come up in the second episode. But, I mean, other than the Master and the Rani and the Doctor, everything else about this is historical.
Yeah, I mean, it just... That's really just it, is that it has to have some alien element. We can't just go to the past to be in the past, so...
All right, so they consider things like the Aztecs and the Trojan War and the Doctor and his first Doctor and his team in Rome. Those are the historicals. So,
yeah, those are the pure historicals. And then every once in a blue moon, someone comes up with an idea of, hey, we can still go back in time. It is a time travel show. We just have to have some sort of alien thing there.
Okay.
So,
well, I have to say, the authenticity, the fact that they have obviously filmed this somewhere that looks very much like an old mining town and again, I'm going to say early 1800s now instead of late 1800s. I don't remember exactly when the Luddites were. I know the Industrial Revolution really didn't start until about the 1730s. So we're somewhere between 1730 and 1800. No, I was going to say till 1776. He mentioned, the Master mentioned, the American Revolution, War for Independence. Again, it's been so long since I've taught world history, but I'm thinking this is probably now mid 1700s. But it's, again, very authentic looking, and the coal miners, the way they talk, the way they dress, what was his name? Ravencroft, Ravenwood,
something like that.
But again, that's all very accurate historically, as far as I remember.
Yeah, it's already like a good sign showing like how well an actor can be as the Doctor by putting him against the Master, and especially with this Master, because he has been through multiple Doctors now. And not only does Colin Baker fit in perfectly with Anthony Ainley, they have so easily brought in the Rani as a third piece to this dynamic that I honestly never thought we really needed a third piece, but she really works. Like, she's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that, where the Doctor and especially the Master will lean maybe a bit more towards sort of mysticism, hypnosis, and stuff. She is purely scientific.
Yeah.
So, and she didn't even have some, grand evil scheme. She's just doing her experiments on what she considers to be lower life forms, and that's how she justifies it. They are lower life forms, just as the animals are lower life forms to humans.
And the way that she justifies, she's not really interfering in Earth's history when you consider that Earth's history is full of times of war and all these other disagreements and everything. She says, all I'm doing is my experiments fit into these time periods so that no one will notice them. And, again, for her somewhat own bizarre altruistic reasons, she's taking this chemical from the humans to take it back to the planet that she now rules over to keep her people from doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's quite clever. I mean, the script is very good.
Yeah. And also, I mean, just with that, I feel like someone took the last little bit of the twin dilemma with the Time Lord there, where it's like, he ruled over this planet until he didn't, and then a slug came in. And it's like, let's just take that, rework it, make it make sense, and now it's the Rani's backstory. So yeah, just a very interesting character, and like, and it makes sense too that it's like, with all the different things, the different times she's done her experiments, not really a blip on anyone's radar, especially the Doctor's. It's only this one, I presume, because it poses too much of a danger to George Stephenson and his invention, which does need to happen for the human race to progress. Yeah. So,
but again, if the Master had not interfered, the Rani probably would have gotten away from it, because again, the Luddites and their rioting against machinery and all that was a very well documented time period of aggression in British history. Also in the United States to some degree, not quite as much as there. So again, I applaud the weaving of the historicity, I guess is the word, into a Doctor Who story. I like that. I enjoy it.
Yeah. I guess that is it. It's the Master being here that really that really brought the Doctor here. Yeah. Otherwise, the Rani would just be completely fine. So,
as John Lennon would have said, threw a Spaniard into the works.
Yeah. So,
and all right, now I realized that they had to keep the Master's costume the same after the Doctor's regenerated and after he regenerated, etc., etc. But he's literally now wearing a medieval costume, straight out of Hamlet or anything else from that time period. But why doesn't he change his outfit to fit into this time period like the Doctor occasionally does?
At the very least, he could even just present himself as a lord, like the one that's in this episode. So, you could have something similar, but he's just, I don't know, he just has such confidence that nobody's going to bother him about it, so. And I mean, because the Doctor kind of has that too, especially going in with the outfit he has now.
Yeah.
But at least he did, change, did infiltrate the bathhouse. He put on the brown jacket and the sort of, the dirty scarf, and he covered his face and everything. So that's at least something. I want to know, is it a general rule with the Time Lords that if you leave Time Lord society, you have to have a different name? Because now, this is the third person that we've had with this. Technically, I guess, fourth, because we've had the Doctor, the Monk, the Master, and now the Rani. It's like, you have to specifically choose something, and it has to be the something.
Yeah.
So, now granted, I guess, I don't even remember what the Time Lord's name was in the Twin Dilemma, but he didn't have something like that.
Yeah.
But he didn't make sense, and that episode sucked, so that's beside the point. But, yeah, it's an interesting thing that it's like, if you're going to be a renegade Time Lord, even if you're a renegade for good, like the Doctor, you have to have some sort of different name. And to their credit, the Time Lords at least acknowledged them by this name. They never, look at the Master and call him Jim, or whatever his real name, his original name was. Yeah. So
it's like there's an episode of the original Star Trek series where Spock was affected by spores from a plant on an alien planet, and it made him sort of fall in love with a young woman there, and she of course falls in love with him, and she ultimately says, something. Spock, is that your name? Is that your full name, or is that just what people call you? And he basically says, well, it's not my real name, but my real name, you couldn't pronounce it. So
yeah,
there may be Borusa and other names like that for these actual characters, but Borusa was the Chancellor. We got the Doctor, the Monk. So I'm sure the Monk just took that name because that was where he ended up.
That's true. So, it's just an interesting thing. And the fact that the Time Lords have, they'll have Borusa or, Omega or Rassilon or something like that. Maybe it's like the Pope, you just sort of choose your name. It's just that everyone who leaves chooses a more pretentious name than the rest of the Time Lords. So...
Those look like speakers.
Yeah, thank goodness he didn't crash into anything.
Yeah.
Well, they got a lot of momentum out of that push.
Am I hurt? Harmed at all? No. Get out! Holy Jackie!
Oof. Oof. You missed!
How can you miss? It's a blunderbuss, basically. Should have.
Trifle. Hey, this metal. I've never seen the like of it before. Just know what foundry forged it.
Oh, is this Stevenson?
George Stevenson, I presume.
Aye.
There's a line in the play I'm directing. Somebody points to a costume like that, says, "You look like Peter Pan, but for evening."
Luke, I want you to swallow this very special sweetmeat.
It tastes like chicken.
Thought sweetmeats were bread, but maybe not.
Whoa!
Let the last go or I'll blow your brains out.
You make an awful mess of that pretty dress.
How?
Peripheral vision?
He saw it coming.
At last, you're
It's the great advantage I have over all my enemies.
Miss, why the devil did you bring us to this miserable dump?
I didn't bring you. You chose to come.
Why here?
Because this was my original base.
Did we have to walk? You used your TARDIS.
My TARDIS is performing a more important function.
It is too much to inquire what that function might be.
Yes.
I like her.
Well,
Hey, that's the key in the TARDIS. But suppose the Rani's in there. Oh no.
thank goodness, it's a universal key. Whoa.
It's the spinning thing from the first Superman movie.
Meh.
Embryos of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. She must have popped back to the Cretaceous age and picked up a few.
Just casually, just for fun.
teeth.
Leave a trap for the doctor. Is that why we couldn't use your TARDIS?
Here, take these.
Its powers needed to operate
Be
the...
careful.
What are they?
Well, let's say that they'll change the doctor's lifestyle.
How? Will he suffer?
Well, I can promise you, he'll never be the same again.
Excellent. Why not kill two birds with one stone?
Who's the other one?
George Stevenson.
How will that threaten the doctor?
How indeed?
I guess those two are friends now. They're placing landmines?
I think it's some kind of cage.
Do you think this plan will work?
I don't make mistakes.
If that were true, you'd still be on Gallifrey. Ooh.
Experiments are always subject to the unexpected.
If she can release a T-Rex into there.
A marked petty spite on the part of the Lord President, just because they ate his cat.
Drunk out of him too, I remember. Pity it wasn't the doctor.
That will soon be remedied.
Please tell me these special effects will be better than Day of the Dinosaur or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Dinosaur invasion. Wonder what percentage of these 2 episodes were done on location.
Well,
There's a lot of outdoor stuff here.
Perhaps the answer's down there, in the dell, where I was supposed to go.
ooh.
Turned him into a tree.
Huh.
I should never have exiled you. They should have locked you in a padded cell. Now move, before I forget my abhorrence of violence and use this.
Ugh.
Don't move, Perry! Don't move! The tree won't hurt you!
I hate moving trees. Ugh.
Right, move, you two. I want you off this planet before you commit any further atrocities.
Bye-bye.
Oh.
Okay, that's far enough. Now don't move. We'll wait here for the doctor.
Oh no.
Listen, you are making a terrible mistake. I am not your enemy.
It's like Return of the Jedi.
Mr. Inventor says us are making a mistake.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Eh. Oh.
Wait. I refuse to run away and let that crack-brained freak win again.
Well, then stay, but without me.
Have you no pride?
Pride? I'm a scientist. I've calculated the odds. And they are not idiotic pride to dictate my actions.
You intellectual micro slave to a computer. He'll be back you and abandon the girl.
You'll never learn, will you?
Quickly! You'll destroy us both!
I will! You blame me!
What's wrong?
It's our speed. It's increasing.
Then reduce it!
You asinine cretin! What do you imagine I'm trying to do?
Oh no.
It's blowing!
Oh no. They're gonna be eaten by a T-Rex.
Know what the blazes this thing is?
Ask Doctor.
Have you ever tried asking the doctor a question? I will venture just one question, Doctor. What precisely do you do in there?
Argue, mainly.
Meh.
Whittaker?
Well, indeed. You know, I always said he was a strange sort of fellow.
Alrighty. Well, at the risk of jinxing everything, is this a really good season?
So far.
Yeah. Like, after hearing, and I know a lot of people love the Sixth Doctor, but, you know, hearing that it's a bit of a, can be a bit of an iffy era. You know, some people love it, some people don't.
Yeah.
Honestly, watching these 3 stories specifically, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
And I like the fact he had the opportunity there to tell Stevenson exactly how to improve the valve and said, you know, you'll do it yourself.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what happened.
Well, yeah. Can't accelerate things a little too quickly, so.
What would have been funny, though, is that last scene with the Master and the Rani is you see her TARDIS start to slow down, and they're going, oh, finally, and then they look up and there's just that little T-Rex baby going.
Well, yeah. I mean, and to the Doctor's credit, he didn't know that the T-Rex would come alive and probably eat them. They'll get better. It's okay, but yeah, very interesting episode and a good introduction to the Rani.
Yeah.
So, honestly, yeah, I can see. I'm sure we'll get a couple more episodes with her, but I can see why people would want to bring the Rani back into modern Doctor Who, and just the fact that because she is so different from the Master, you know, like yes, she will be an adversary to the Doctor, but that's only if, only if he does become a problem to her. You know, she is first and foremost about her experiments. So I feel bad for her planet, though. Not going to get any sleep. So,
well, again, once she figures out what's wrong with her TARDIS, she can then go back in time to before, or to the time when she left, so that anything that happened in that future will then be a different timeline.
Yeah.
Theoretically speaking.
All right. But yeah, a very interesting, and it's also interesting because I feel like with the dynamic between the three of them, I do feel like it does sort of lose like the initial premise of, going against the machinery and stuff like that. Like we have Stevenson here in part 2. I feel like, he doesn't do a ton in the episode though. So, I don't know. It's sort of a give and take. But still, it's always fun when the Master shows up. So, and then adding another Time Lord on top of that is also good.
Well, the thing is, the Doctor has never really insulted the Master. He's, always found clever ways to beat him. But she's just going, you're a cretin. You're a moron. This idea of trying to control the universe is ludicrous. You have all these powers that you can use to do like she does, to rule over her own little planet. Everything's fine. And she says, it's no wonder the Doctor beats you all the time because you're an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing of, the Master has great intelligence and great ambition, but he also has great pride and great stubbornness that he could do so much, without just, everything he does is centered around destroying the Doctor.
Yeah.
So, or ruling the universe, which generally entails destroying the Doctor anyway. So, whereas, with the Rani, she's really just, doing her experiment. She's doing, what she thinks she needs to do. And yes, there are, terrible side effects to the victims of her experiments because she is so logical and science focused. And that's a really interesting, it makes for an interesting dynamic between the three of them, because we have a lot of moments, where, we are reminded that the Doctor is an alien. And especially with this one, I feel like, he's the most alien, he's felt, at least for a little while. And that can also sort of be a debate among fans of like, do you prefer the Doctor being more human-like? I would say probably the Fifth Doctor would be closer to, well, yeah, he's an alien, but he can easily pass for a human. Or would you rather have the Doctor be more like, the Sixth Doctor, maybe even the Fourth Doctor? He's just way out there. He's definitely an alien. And so then putting that against the Rani is really, really interesting. And then putting the Rani against the Master.
Yeah. Now, again, we had talked about the fact that the introduction of this Doctor in the Twin Dilemma and then that, wait of 9 months, that might have influenced because, let's face it, in the Twin Dilemma, he was obnoxious.
Yeah.
He wasn't funny. He was so split between what was happening to him that, I can understand why people would say, well, I really don't want to watch this Doctor because he's got an ugly personality. But now that has tempered a little, and he's becoming quirky. He's Tom Baker quirky. He's a little bit of Troughton quirky, but it's the mellowing that he's done so far would, I suspect, draw the people back in. Some people would say, "Oh, are you still watching Doctor Who? I turned it off after that sixth Doctor was introduced." And then people would say, "No, but he's different now." And, "Oh, really?" So I'll tune in, give it a watch, and go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So I understand those people who did not like him at first. We didn't really particularly care for him in the Twin Dilemma, not just because it was a bad script, but because his performances and the direction of his performances was bad. But I think, again, they finally figured out what to do with him so that he's not quite so obnoxious and he's just prickly.
Yeah. If anything, it was good having the Twin Dilemma where it was, because you get to test it and you get the immediate feedback so that the next season you know what to do. It's either, well, the people like this, which didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's like either the people enjoy this and we can just work with this in the next season, or what ended up happening is this is not the direction we need to go for this Doctor. We have, there was some stuff there in the Twin Dilemma, but if you're going to go that way, you have to figure out how to actually make it work for the next season. And I feel like that's what they did now. To where in these last 3 stories, these really worked out. So,
yeah. And
again, having him now, opposite of the Master is great because, and especially with this, it's like, the past 3 incarnations have dealt with the Master. With the last 2 of them dealing with this one in particular. And just the fact that he can so seamlessly integrate with and match Anthony Ainley's performance, it says a lot about Colin Baker and his performance as the Doctor. That it just feels completely natural, just the way it did with the 20,000 episodes that Peter Davison did with him, and the pretty much 1 episode that Tom Baker did right at the end. So yeah, I think it just works out really well. And then on top of that, introducing the Rani as well, which I'm curious what the idea was. Where did they come up with the idea of the Rani? And because we've had a couple Time Lords here and there, even in the Twin Dilemma. There was this rogue Time Lord. He didn't really do much in that story, but I wonder if what made them think of this idea and to have this dynamic with the Doctor and the Master as well.
Well, there's 2 writers for this, one or both of them, because I don't know what kind of a name Pip is. But one of the writers was a woman, and what if she just went in and said, "Look, although we have seen female Gallifreyans, what would be our take on a rogue female Time Lord?" And just kind of went from there and developed. And again, your mother would love this. The woman comes in and looks at the Master, and unlike the Doctor who simply tries to thwart him, the woman comes in and goes, "This guy's an idiot."
Yeah.
And we need to put him in his place. And so there's a humorous aspect to that, because I'm sure a lot of women who have watched a Doctor who were 12 years old when it started and have grown up with all the Doctors are looking at this going, why? Again, remember the 70s and 80s, the big revolution of putting women in positions of authority. Looking at this going, why haven't we had a female Time Lord? Because it would, like I say, it introduces an entirely new dynamic. We've seen women in all the various places that they've gone, being in charge of expeditions and spaceships and freighters, and the woman who was the High Counselor or whatever in the one with the Draconians. But this is the first time we've ever seen someone who has the power of the Doctor.
Yeah, because it's not just... Because we've had a couple female Time Lords, but they're as notable as the rest of the male Time Lords were, in that they weren't. They were just kind of there. With the exception of Barusa, none of them are really that big of characters, So now having... Because I think there was, an idea around, I think, the end of Tom Baker's era. There was an idea of maybe the Doctor could regenerate into being a woman. And, what would that mean? They eventually didn't go with that, but maybe that kind of stuck in the back of their head. Like, well, could we do that? Could we have the Master become a woman? Or do we add a third character? And maybe they also thought, how many times can we bring the Master back? I mean, it's great. He's fun. Anthony Ainley is a lot of fun to watch. But at the same time, it's like, could we, add something new to this dynamic, which the Rani does. So just making her just purely a scientist as well, because, and especially too with, because we talked about, the names that they choose, and, the Rani, I don't know, I wouldn't have like a, initial thought of hearing just the Rani, that's just sort of a name basically to me. But you hear, it's like, all right, this guy is called the Doctor. It's like, okay, well, that's an interesting name. Like, you kind of have some initial ideas of what he is, and then you get this other dude who looks like Dracula and calls himself the Master, and it's like, okay, well, I got a lot of ideas of what this guy is like. So it's an interesting thing. Like, you have those two. But then it's like, she's just not like the two of them. It's like, she's a renegade Time Lord only because they kicked her out. Like, that was it. Like, the Doctor stole the TARDIS, went off to go see the universe. The Master took his TARDIS and went off to kill the Doctor, basically, to, go be a nuisance. But the Rani, she probably would have just stayed on Gallifrey had the Time Lords accepted her and her experiments. Yeah. So just that dynamic between the three of them is really, really interesting. And the fact that she's not just another version of them. She is so distinct in this episode. So, and then, just the idea of, she goes to different points throughout history where she wouldn't really be noticed. I mean, it reminds me of Loki. When they talk about one of the characters in there, it's like, well, she keeps like hopping through different times. But how come, the TVA never notices her? Because she always goes to disasters where nothing's going to be affected anyway. Like, she'll go to Pompeii. You can do anything in Pompeii because it's going to be destroyed anyway. Like, nothing, you can't change anything about that. So it is sort of the same thing with the Rani. It's like she keeps going to places where it's like, like if she went to now, and she went to, I guess just, let's just say the middle of London and started doing this, and there's people just going crazy and, big aggressive acts in London. I mean, granted, I don't think anyone would necessarily go to aliens first in this day and age, but, it would be something strange, whereas she's going to different places where it's like, no, that's already kind of a thing. It's not really changing anything.
Yeah.
So that all of that stuff is interesting. And then the whole thing of, taking the specific chemical that humans use so that they can sleep. Remember I was watching a YouTube video and they were talking about something similar to that. It may have even just been that, where it's like it was basically a drug that was, it either was that chemical or just very similar to that chemical, and if you took it, for instance, like a recreational drug, I suppose, it would induce that sleep, and that, like, it would make you just dream. And they were talking about, like, so my friends did it, and the guy telling the story, he was like, I didn't do it because I'm too old for new drugs. I can't do it. I can't even do the old drugs anymore. But he was saying that his buddy took it, went off for 15 minutes in another room, came back and said, I have been living in a forest with elves for 15 years, and proceeded to describe every single day that he was, in this forest. And he was like, dude, I know when I left I was 24, but now I'm like 36. And the guy was like, no, I think you're still 24 and you're still high off of the thing you just took 15 minutes ago. But it's an interesting concept, and it's such a simple thing, honestly, for the Rani to take, but it's just that she needs that because her experiments have gone awry on her own planet. So, which, we talk about the cold scientist who has no feeling or anything, but she does want to help her own people, fix the mistake that she made. It's just at the cost of some other poor people. Yeah. So, other stuff this episode, I still was not expecting a dinosaur, but that was interesting. I'm sure, I love there's no real explanation of, the last time we saw the Master, he was burned to a crisp. He got better. It's just...
And at the end of the story, where's the Master's TARDIS?
Yeah, I guess...
He's now stuck on the Rani, so in order for him to get back to his own, he's got to persuade her to get back to it.
Yeah.
Again, though, one of the things I was saying about the historicity of it, the dialect and the dialogue and the characters and the costumes and the setting, the fact that they did so much of it on location, I thought that was fantastic. That is probably one of the best scenery, cinematography things that we've seen in quite a long while.
Yeah. And just like a lot of the crane shots, there were a lot of just moving shots that was interesting, and a lot of them, and it did kind of go back to the standard, Doctor Who way of shooting things of just, here's a shot, Colin Baker walks into the shot, they do something, walk out of the shot, do a new shot, But there was a lot of just slow moving shots that I thought were good and very unlike Doctor Who, honestly. Especially just like the opening scene of part 1, like it really just didn't feel like a Doctor Who shot, honestly.
Yeah.
So that was really good. And then just the fact that it was a historical, not a pure historical, but just a historical episode.
Yeah.
So
now, again, there may have been an edit in the final product, but the first time we see the Doctor and Perry, she is dressed for the period, but he is not.
Yeah.
So he might have said, hey, we're going to the mid-1700s, 1800s. They never did establish exactly when it was. But it was very obvious that she had been prepared to go there. But again, he should have said, hey, we're going to go try to blend into this era. So, let me don a different coat, which he ultimately did to get into the bathhouse.
Yeah.
But that was, it was, considering everything else, that was just a minor thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's just a funny thing, because there are a lot of episodes. I think, there's an episode with the 9th Doctor where they go back in time, and I guess I won't say too much, I guess, because we're going to get there in just, in 6 months or so. But there was an episode, and they were about to walk out, and he tells his companion, no, if you can't just go out there in your modern clothing. So she goes and gets, a period-appropriate dress, and he just walks out there in his, black leather jacket anyway. It's like, the Doctor just doesn't really care about that, but you make sure that his companions always wear the right thing. So, and they did say they were heading to this year anyway. It's just that the location was off. They were going to a different location. It was the Master that brought them specifically to that town. So, which, I almost wonder, it's like, why doesn't the Master, he always tries to get the Doctor at the beginning of his plan. Let your plan marinate for a bit, because he has this whole thing of yes, I'll destroy the Doctor, and I will, then I will use the Rani's technology, and I will, rule this world and stuff. It's like, why don't you wait? Let the Doctor go on his merry way, and hopefully he doesn't just, because I suppose at that point, the TARDIS could bring them there, the Time Lords could do something. It's like, go convince the Rani, take over the world for 100 years, and then go after the Doctor. It's like, why do you try to, I guess he's trying to kill two birds with one stone, except his stone is just a little pebble, and the birds are falcons. It doesn't work. So. But he always thinks he can do it. So.
Hubris.
Yeah. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
All right.
What's up next?
The next one, I believe, is a 3-parter, actually. So we're going to have to figure out how to do 3 parts. But the next one is The Two Doctors. Now, I don't hear great things about this episode, but I hear it's interesting. So, yeah, we get to... Spoilers, we get to bring back a doctor. So one of them's coming back. Maybe we'll keep that under wraps until next week. But I do know that I'm pretty sure it's 3 parts long. So we'll either just go through all 3 parts in one go, or we'll do like the first 2 parts one video and the third part in another video.
Well, I don't have anything next weekend. I got the auditions this weekend, but I'm free next weekend. So if you want to do all 3 of them, I have the time.
Yeah, we might just do all 3 just because it's easy. I mean, that's just the equivalent of an old school 6-parter, which we have done those before. We've done 7-parters in one go before. I don't know how we used to do that, but anywho. But we will get to that next time, and hopefully I didn't jinx us in that the next episode will now be utter garbage. But I don't know. We'll have to see. But that is basically it. With all of that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check that out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.